You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Its purpose is to dissect horror films, both old and new. We're currently dedicating the recent season to the late, great Wes Craven and his middle years of his career, which I'm dubbing the nightmare years, because it's sandwiched basically between his first venture into Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street, and then ends on the very last movie he did with the Freddy Krueger kind of in the director's chair, which was Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and everything in between. Coupled with that, though, we are going to be kind of dedicating some of the podcast episodes to the actual franchise of Nightmare on Elm Street. And we're roughly about halfway through now, as we're about to talk about the installment, which was called The Dream Child. Before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty and the bloods and guts of it, though, I should introduce myself. I'm the lead surgeon and host of the podcast. My name is Saul Murte, and joining me once again next to me in the chair to discuss the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise discussions is Oscar Jack. Welcome back, Oscar.
Thank you. Ready to chop this fella up?
Yeah, let's just get the cleaver out, man, and just go to town on this bad boy.
Slice and dice.
Slice and dice. So here's the thing. So, and I'm gonna throw it straight down. I don't often kind of go straight out there and say where I stand on the movie at the beginning of the podcast. But I have to say, like, we're 5 in now. We're knee deep in the blood and shit, right, of the Freddy franchise world. I'm not a big fan of this installment of the franchise, and I'll leave it as that. But I'll get into the whys as we kind of go through the narrative. But I guess before we do that, where are you placed? Not necessarily on your thoughts on this movie, but how did you first come across Dream Child?
Dream Child, for me, I came across it when I watched all of them about a year ago.
Okay.
Or a little less than a year ago. Unlike the others, where I'd kind of caught bits and pieces, or I'd watched them on TV, or I'd never seen anything of this one.
Okay. Okay.
So watching it going from Dream Master into Dream Child, I knew it was kind of around the later ones. It was this one and the Final Nightmare that I'd never seen even an ounce of. So I definitely came into it. There was no nostalgia goggles for me, or kind of deep festering wounds that it had caused me.
Yes.
But so yeah, I came to it very, very fresh-eyed.
Okay. Cool. And that was about a year ago. So, and there's, how much of the franchise had you seen outside of that? 'Cause I know you just said you watched like the whole lot in a block, essentially.
I'd seen the first and the third.
Okay.
First and third were the ones that I'd like properly seen multiple times in the past. And
I might be misquoting you, but I seem to remember you saying that you have taken your partner on the journey with you on this one.
One of my friends.
One of your friends.
My partner in crime.
Your partner in crime. So, were they? I guess the reason I'm asking that question in particular is, were they in on that journey as you went into watching this for the first time? Was that part of that set?
Yes. They'd never seen any of them.
All right, cool.
They'd never seen a single Nightmare on Elm Street film, and it was actually us going to our old Astor Theatre down here in Melbourne when they were playing. It's beautiful old vintage spot, and they played the original up on the big screen. She came along with me. She'd never seen it before, and she really loved it. So I invited her to come with me on that journey and watch every single one of them.
Nice. That's cool.
And definitely up to this point, like definitely with the last one, and then definitely with this one is when we start interjecting a little bit more into the film.
All right. Oh, cool. And that, I guess that's why I wanted to bring her into the equation. And I know she's not privy to the podcast discussion, but I think it'd be good to kind of just before we bow out of the podcast is to kind of play on, because obviously you've got someone new to the franchise, shall we say, and to kind of get their thoughts on where we're at on this journey at this point too. All right. So with all that said and done. So this one, I have vague memories of this one, particularly with the history of Amanda Kruger. And I do remember that more than, I guess, the actual film itself previously. So when I came to rewatching this ahead of the podcast, those were the things that were fresher in my mind, I should say. And for me, and this is probably a hint as to why I probably am not a fan, is that I prefer the less is more route to evil. As in, like, the less we know about why someone is evil or how they became evil, for me is better. And I feel like they explore his background a bit too much.
Yes, it's the old... well, it's like I feel like a lot of rules with comedy work with horror. And there's the old joke about analyzing a joke is it's like dissecting a frog. At the end of it, all you've got is a dead frog.
Yeah.
It's not particularly funny, and I think it's less scary, and I think I can understand the impulse with this one because they really do dive into Amanda Kruger, and particularly, they deal with his mother, and this film is all about mothers and sons, and I say all about, it's I don't know how deep that well goes, but we kind of there's a lot. How about we jump into the plot?
Let's just get into it. And talk about the narrative. So those that are new to the podcast, this is basically what we do. We kind of delve into the narrative and we kind of try and dissect and discuss it along the way, and our thoughts and reactions to the scenes and stuff that's unfolding. So we pick up, and it's about a year after the fact. From the previous movie, which was Dream Master. Again, that's about the same time frame from when the movie was released as well. They're about a year apart from each other. We meet up with our two survivalists, essentially Alice and Dan. Vanilla Dan. And our heroine, Alice, is back. And they're very much a couple there now. No sign.
We see them making sweet love in the beginning. In this very kind of it's dripping in blue light, and it's very close over the credits. We don't get a quote at the beginning of this one.
No, we don't.
Sadly, I think it's a shame. But after we kind of, it's not quite clear what is going on because of the way it's shot.
Yeah.
But you kind of quickly realize that it's a sex scene. After which Alice goes to have a post-coital shower, and we actually get, like, there's a lot of dings on this film, but one thing that I'll give it credit for is that this is a nightmare that I have had. As she gets into the shower and she kind of loses control of the knobs, and the whole thing starts filling up with water.
Yeah.
I think that's one that I was surprised that they hadn't gotten to yet.
Yes, of course. And and I think the director, Stephen Hopkins, kind of said at least he managed to get the shower moment in a Freddy franchise, if anything else. Because up to that point, hasn't been one. And, shower scenes are very kind of, obviously because of the Psycho connection, has always been quite a famous thing to include in horror films. And this is the first time we get it. So we have that kind of moment at the very beginning where she's kind of trapped in the cubicle as it's filling with water. And in amongst that, Alice does start getting to have these dreams about this young nun who's called Amanda Kruger. And basically she's in an insane asylum. She's not one of the patients there. She works there, but somehow manages to get locked in this big room full of maniacs, essentially.
100 maniacs.
100 maniacs. Yeah.
We've gotten this story. We got this story in number 3.
Number 3 mentions the other dude, because he gets visits from
Amanda.
Amanda,
who we end up finding is the ghost of Amanda, which I think is the perfect use of that.
Yeah,
it's all you need, and it's kind of all we needed. But we're at the 5th film now, so where else are you going to go?
Yeah, we got to wring that sponge out a little bit more just to see what can we get out of this to kind of keep this franchise ticking along. They decide the Amanda Kruger is the drip that they're going to kind of explore and see how much they can kind of soak up and put into a narrative, essentially. So we have these kind of moments, and at this point, it's only kind of little moments of just seeing Amanda stuck in this room. We don't dwell on it at this stage further than that.
We kind of cut away before
the reveal
all of the awfulness happens. But it's incredibly grimy, and it's very gross. Like, I really don't like it. It's really unsavory and not even a way that it's I don't need to see that. I don't need to see it. That's good backstory.
It's backstory.
But I don't want to see the kind of the moments before the implied rape of a nun by 100 maniacs that spawned our
demon,
our nightmare demon creature.
It's just not necessary. Like, and also, like, what I was going to say with that too is that the sorry, lost my train of thought with that. Sorry, we'll move on. We don't need to see that. I agree with you. It's not a necessary journey for us to kind of explore that. It gives too much away from the history of, But anyway, it's what we are presented with. But as I said, at this stage, we only get we are. Oh, I know what I was going to say. We're presented with this moment, and we don't actually get to see anything at this stage other than that she's kind of stuck in this place. But I do take note that the color scheme is reminiscent of the first film with the boiler room. The lighting's that kind of grimy, kind of yellowy, orangey kind of lighting. So it kind of played on that. It's a very long bow, I know, I admit, to jump with that, but I'm trying to some kind of gravity.
Particularly from jumping from the last film, which is so neon, and so kind of highly produced. And this film doesn't have that feel. No. It feels like, I guess there definitely feels like there's less money.
It does a bit.
For this one, the last one is just kind of really crazy and a lot grander in a lot of the things that it tries to do, whereas this one feels a little bit smaller scale. But we quickly meet, our new fresh meat.
And fresh meat,
At their graduation. Alice has done well to make a new group of best friends
that she can
which
from too.
That's right. There's a telling line as well. There's a telling line that I think they kind of know the situation that they've got where the friends say, like, if he wants you, he'll have to get through us. And Alice says, that's what I'm afraid of. And it's like, yep. That's how they work. That's how all of these movies. Everyone's dead.
Yeah,
you're all dead.
Yes, you know it's going to happen. Okay, so obviously we have Dan. We obviously Dan's still around, and
who is less vanilla in this movie?
He is a bit less vanilla. He's a bit more.
He's a bit more energized. He's got more character. Like
more chiseled.
He's a bit kind of. I don't know. I feel like a word to describe him in the movie is a little bit hornier.
Yeah, he's a bit hornier with not just with Alice either. Like there's that scene later on where he's with the other people at the swimming bath, I think it is, and he's he just seems a bit more kind of risque approach to life and stuff. So yeah, a bit more confident, and. We see that, so we know that Alice and Dan are planning to go away to Europe. We meet the new friends. So there's Greta, who's a supermodel, apparently, in training. We have Yvonne, who's a future Olympic diver. And we get Mark, the comic geek.
Who's very 1989. He's
very 1989.
Very 80. It's a real kind of, it feels like almost like a prop comedian. It's that kind of energy. We also meet. We also are reintroduced to Alice's dad, who we find out is now he's sober. He's a recovering alcoholic now, which is nice. Like there is a nice bit of continuity between the last one and this one. I do appreciate. Yeah. And if I'm ever going to watch either of them, it'll probably be together.
Yeah, and that's definitely how I think I mentioned that in the last podcast. That's actually how I watched this in the lead up to this record, is that I watched those two back to back. And they do marry. They do marry if you watch it that way. I don't know whether that says much about my thoughts on the film, though. But yeah. So we're introduced to that, and we see that Dad is trying to kind of make an amends for his poor choices along the way, in the lead up to this. We then find that Alice has kind of she wants to work. Hold on. Oh, that's right. She's on the way to work, but she kind of ends up at the asylum for some reason.
Yeah, she's walking through the park and she sees the Freddy Squad.
Yeah,
skipping rope, singing their song.
Yeah,
it kind of draws her in, and she ends up at the asylum. She sees Amanda. She kind of follows her into here, and the asylum in this movie is basically our boiler room.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is another thing. Like there are some things that I like on paper. Like I like that they've introduced a new creepy location that they can keep on coming back to. That isn't their house. It isn't the boiler room. It's like and they get a lot of mileage, which also sometimes definitely feels like a budgetary thing. Is that most of it's. They reuse a lot of sets. There's not a lot of kind of craziness, but she ends up back in there and is swooped up into being on a gurney, being pushed down the hallways. She's screaming, and doctors and nurses are all around her. And suddenly, she's no longer on the bed. She's watching. Watching a young Amanda giving birth.
Yeah.
To the ugliest baby you've ever damn seen in your whole life.
Yeah.
The fetal Freddy, as I like to call it.
Freddy, I like that. Nice. Yeah, because it's got like the features are there. It's very obvious who this baby is. Just minus the fedora hat. As it kind of scurries away off and escapes.
Very very alien. Xenomorph kind of thing, scattering off out through the door.
That's right. And then Alice follows the fetus baby into the church.
The church, our climactic location from last film.
That's right. But then before she can stop him, the baby finds Freddy's clothes and it quickly becomes an adult Freddy. And then Amanda, the nun, shows up to help Alice. But I think Freddy slams the church doors close on her, and
well, I have to stop you there.
Yeah,
I have to stop you there, Saul, because we get our showman Freddy line as he's crawled back and the windows have exploded, and he throws his hands up as he has his glove and his hat, and he says, "It's a boy." I'm like, okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. That's a good one.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, hats off to him.
Yes,
it's good. It's a good moment. But but then he basically slams the doors to the church, and she wakes up, finds herself at work, but she's like late, she's like really late. And this is the diner still, so we're still at the diner place.
Yeah, again, another piece of continuity that I like. I like that, we're revisiting these spaces, even though everyone from last movie except for Dan is dead.
Yes, that's right. And speaking of, Alice phones Dan up to say, he's back. Somehow Freddy's back. He's reborn. Dan says he basically leaves his friends.
They're all hanging at the pool.
Drinking champagne.
Drinking at the public pool.
Yes. That's weird. It wasn't.
It's weird. There's lots of weird elements like that. You're like, what?
Let's go hang out. Where are we going to hang out? I don't know. The pool.
It's our only second scene with everyone. We get a tiny bit at the graduation. This one we get a tiny bit more, where we are setting up all of their faults and all of their kind of the things that are going to be the set pieces that kill them. Oh God, and the cartoonist just has that awful like late 80s hair where it's gelled to crap and it's all like individually spiked and it's just a lot. It's a lot to deal with.
A lot going on. The visual attack of the senses. But this is the interesting thing here too though, is because Dan, as he's then heading over, he falls asleep, doesn't he, as he's driving over?
Here's the thing: is that Alice tells him that it was weird because she wasn't asleep when this whole thing happens.
Yes.
Which I've got a question that I'll pose to you later in regards to that.
Yeah.
Which either is on the side of deliberate or it's just kind of sloppy writing and just like a bit too vague. But Dan's driving along and is now in a dream.
He's in a dream. That's right. But then, so you may have to interject again here. But I'm pretty sure he crashes the car. But then he gets on a bike.
Yes. Well, Freddy's in the car with him.
Yes,
he loses control. He crashes the car. He goes flying out of the window into the pool area. He picks himself up. He goes back out. The car's still wrecked, but there's a motorcycle next to it.
Yes.
And he jumps on the motorcycle.
That's right.
And drives off again.
But there's a big clue there in the color of the bike. It's a very distinctive red and green metallic color. And before he knows it, he's basically riding. This sounds really wrong, but he's riding Freddy. And then Freddy kind of morphs around Dan, essentially, in his hands and his face.
It's very, very H.R. Geiger. It's all of these like organic, technological chords and kind of these pieces all just kind of coming in where it's fusing him to this bike, which is not bad. It doesn't look too bad. I feel like but we're basically having two death scenes. The fact that he was in a car with Freddy and he left the car and now he's on a bike, it feels it's very weird. Because the image is cool. It's almost like very like in Morton Joe, Mad Max Fury Road, where it's like he's got his bottom half of the face is kind of all cords and metallic, and his head's all kind of sickly pale and bald, and he's just driving as fast as he can. And he wakes up back in the car, still driving, and he crashes into a truck right outside of Alice's diner.
Yeah. And she comes running out, and she knows it's too late.
She sees him. She sees Dan, and she sees him possessed by Freddy.
That's it.
Saying, something about love. Hi Alice. He says, "Hi Alice, want to make babies?"
Yes.
And then is gone.
That's it.
One of the many kind of weird lines of kind of like out of context kind of things where you're like, there was no real setup for that. That's kind of out of the way, even though that's very much playing into what Alice doesn't know yet. But she finds out in the next scene as she wakes up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Thinking it was a dream, but realizes Dan was in an accident and he's dead. The doctor says to her, in your condition, and she says, "Oh my God, what's wrong with me?" And I think even unironically, it's one of my favorite lines. Is when she asks, "What's wrong with me?" And her friend says, "Nothing. You're just a little pregnant."
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. Which is hilarious. I laugh every time that's delivered. It's just, Dan's a little dead and you're a little pregnant.
Yeah. Just a little window into your psyche there, Oscar. It's a very... We're forced to go through a barrage of emotions at this point here. And so basically it's a way we've killed off a character that was from the previous movie. But they need to quickly get on to the premise of it. It's because this is about birth and rebirth, essentially. It's based around that. So we need to have Alice be pregnant, and the illusion that that this child will become Freddy, reborn in the world, essentially, is what we're playing here. While she's recovering, she meets this young kid called Jacob. Now
he's in a hospital gown. He's presumably one of the patients. He's played by the little boy from the opening scene in Jurassic Park, who Sam Neill terrifies with a raptor hook.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, his name's Hertford. I want to say Hartford. He's known as the kid at the very beginning, as you said, from Jurassic Park. So because he was in Poltergeist 2 as well. That's kind of like a bit of a creepy kind of. He's one of Kane's people in that from the character of that. So he's got that kind of creepy looking thing going on. So I kind of remember him more from that, but that might be because I semi-watched the Poltergeist franchise in the lead up to rewatching this one. So I think it's probably why he was a bit more prominent in my mind. But other than that, he's mainly known for doing voice work. He's done like a whole load of stuff. If you click on his credits on IMDb, you'll be able to find that. We have this kind of, as I said, this is this young kid called Jacob who's all in the gowns and stuff. And as she's recovering, Alice kind of befriends her. but then she finds out later from her friend Yvonne that there was no kid there.
There's no kids ward. There's no.
Yeah. That's right. And then we start getting, Kruger starts to kind of basically attack them all the friends one by one. And the first one to be dispatched is the aggressive girl, who's the one that's training to be a supermodel. She's at some kind of, I want to say, banquet with her family and friends.
Yeah, it's her family, like it's a near high society dinner party kind of thing. She's sitting at the end in she got a little white flower in her hair, and she is very uninterested. Yeah, she's very uninterested. It's this insipid kind of like lifestyle, essentially. And she's, it's again very two-dimensional, but she's training to be a supermodel, so she's very kind of conscious about what she eats and doesn't really eat a lot. There's implied, I can't remember if they show it or not, but it's implied that she has bulimia or somewhere along those lines. And in this film, she falls asleep at the table, at which point Freddy appears and he basically forces her. With a chef's hat and rolling a little silver tray in. We get a wonderful another Freddy line of "Bon appetit, bitch." Which really, like, particularly because I recently rewatched the Rick and Morty episode where they have Scary Terry and he just adds bitch to everything. It's like you think that's parody, but then you watch these ones, the later Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and it's just not. It's just a complete kind of rip off. But it's very unpleasant. She's now kind of, she's kind of trapped in like a baby seat, basically, because of her domineering mother, and she's obsessed with all of these dolls. The kind of connection of the perfection that her mum's putting on her, and the perfection of the dolls, and
that's right.
Stuffing her face, Freddy is, and her cheeks are like, not a particularly great effect. It doesn't look really very good, but her cheeks are just overfilled with food coming through, and he leans in, he says like there he's like trying to burp her like a baby. It's a lot. But she is able to reach out, I guess, to Alice. In her own fridge, and we do get a nice little moment of stop motion where everything in her fridge kind of molds over, and then
that's right.
Greta bursts through the door, and Freddy comes through and slams the door shut.
That's right.
A similar kind of thing with last time, where she keeps on knowing. She's got this kind of line. He's still using her as the jumping off point. To be getting all of these people. That's it. And then obviously that's when Greta's killed, and we basically just have, like, from the real world's perspective, she's still at the dining table, and we just see her slump into the bowl of soup or whatever it is in front of her, and she's killed. Then Freddy tries to go for Mark, who's the comic geek character. He goes into Freddy brings him into an Aha music video. We get a little bit of the Take on Me kind of style of him having gone into one of his own drawings, and Alice. It's a little touch that I quite like, but Alice is like, I've got to come in after, and she just draws like a stick figure of herself in, and then turns around. It's not a good movie, but there's these moments around this. It just makes me like, not a lot. It's a little It's an aha. I think this is the point where the movie was really starting to lose me.
And this particular moment, it's a weak death scene as well. Like,
it's not a death scene.
Oh no, it's not. That's true.
No, she saves him from what looks like a weird meaty tube that she also saw Dan kind of being sucked into, and saves him. She saves her other mate from being sucked in, and he kind of wakes up and gets out of there.
Yeah.
And we bump into Jacob again.
Jacob! Yeah. So, and that's where she finds out that he is her unborn son.
He's telling her, why don't you want me? And all of this kind of bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Freddie's doing something to her baby.
Yes, he is. Like an Iago whispering into Jacob's ear. So Alice, you're right. Alice saves Mark in the process as well. Sorry, I was jumping ahead to the death scene later. That comes a little bit later. But instead, this is where Alice realizes that she needs to try and find out where Amanda's body is. So Amanda Kruger's body is, to see if it's,
because they set this up. They set this up in the beginning when Amanda first saves her from Freddy when Freddy's reborn.
Yeah,
she tells Alice, "Find my body, like set me free." Like
that's right.
Like, which like in rewatching this, I'm like, oh, that's great. Like this is the first movie where we've really got like a real tangible goal so early in the movie.
Yes,
but they don't do anything with it. They don't even touch it.
No.
For the vast majority of the movie, she's like, it's just not brought back up because after this she goes and gets an ultrasound because she wants to suss out what's happening to the baby.
Yes, something's going on.
Something's going on. She gets sucked in. We see a fetus, a developing fetus.
We do.
Like a highly developed fetus. It's got fingers and kind of like I feel like now that I know like what a presumably like a 4 or 5 week old baby looks like it's a lot less looking like a baby born and a lot more like a misshapen eggplant. But we see that the tube that they've all been getting sucked into is the umbilical cord. That all of these souls are being kind of streamlined and that Freddy's in there and he's playing around with the fact that babies kind of live in a perpetual dreamscape while they're developing, before they're born, which again is like it's a good place for the thing to go, like for the franchise to go, like that's fertile ground.
And I would agree with that too. That's like if I am going to give it some kind of credit, I would at least kind of say, that's interesting. That's new terrain because like this. Alice even says the question like, can babies like do unborn babies, do they dream? Are they capable of dreaming? And I can't remember if it's a friend of Von that says it or if a doctor replies to it, but it kind of says yes.
It's the doctor. Yeah.
And he's a bit like, why are you asking about of all the things?
Like, is this why you're here? Like, you've just found out you're pregnant.
Yes, that's right. And I wrote in, I'm wondering at what point I've written this down. I wrote this down as a note about lucid dreaming. So like lucid dreaming being the point where the dreamer is aware that they are dreaming and they start to try and manipulate what they are dreaming about for it to turn into. I don't know why I've written that down as a note, but I've got it there anyway.
Her cartoonist friends, kind of does that. He kind of goes along a little bit with the Dream Warrior route of like
that's
being empowered in his dream.
Yeah.
Well, we get the Dan's, but before we get our next death, we get Dan's parents who come and visit.
Like asking
her if they can adopt the baby and raise it as their own.
Yes.
Which is it's a weird. This movie's got a weird tone.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it's dealing with all of this like very like potentially very like rich dramatic ground.
Yes.
With her boyfriend having died and her being like pregnant with his child and
yes.
and like this could be like really like this could be like material for like an actual proper heartfelt like intense drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've still kind of got Freddy in Freddy mode.
Yes.
Which does stop it from you know, it's hamstrung. It's hamstrung because it's kind of trying to do bits and pieces but it's not able to kind of do anything.
It's probably
tonally it's just all over.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's potentially trying to do too much as well. And it's like and like you said, there's a lot of elements at play. It's probably too rich material to play with for what's essentially as a slasher film. Without at least beefing up the running time to explore those elements a bit deeper,
or cutting down the amount of friends.
Yeah, true.
Like I know that the big thing is, you know, they need the kill count, they need lots of deaths, they need all of that kind of stuff. But it just, you know, it doesn't. Yeah, it like that is the downfall of the worse nightmare films. There's just too many characters in it.
Yeah.
And it's all just kind of spread too thin.
Yeah. That's right. So off the back of this, then Alice then realizes. So she's still on this. So she realizes that she does need to find where Amanda was buried, or discover where her body is. And then while that's happening, Yvonne is attacked by Kruger. I think that's when she takes a bit of a spa dip.
Yes.
And there's that whole kind of interaction with Kruger there, but she manages to get away and escape Kruger. And I think, again, that was because of Amanda's interjection. And she meets up with Alice, and that's where Alice is starting to tell her what's going down, essentially.
They're in the dream together.
That's it.
They kind of run off. Freddy leaves them and goes after their last remaining friend in probably the funnest kind of sequence. Like it's definitely I don't know, maybe not fun. There's a lot going on. It's the zaniest.
It is definitely
where everything's black and white, except for him, and you know he's got his comic book character that he loves, and that he's able to kind of put on the mask and get his guns, and you know.
Yeah, this is definitely a nod to Dream Warriors mode, like you were saying earlier. And yeah, I think he doesn't he see Greta at this point too with the whole dolls thing. Doesn't that happen at this 6?
Yes, Freddy, because Mark loved Greta, and Freddy waves that in his face, which is what brings out his gun-toting persona.
That's right.
And then we get
I've got it
Mark
here
turning 2D.
Yeah. I've got this thing here saying that his dream power is the night prowler, which is what they dubbed him as
the night prowler.
Yeah.
Yes,
and then he
very kind of what's his name? Like very kind of like Spawn, Venom. It's very of the kind of early 90s, late 80s comic boom of like badass upon badass.
Yeah.
How many guns? He's got 3 guns.
He's got 3 guns.
He's got more guns than he has hands. You know?
And then he has that kind of moment where he starts to attack Kruger, but then he goes into that 2D version of himself with Kruger.
All of his color drains out of him on the floor,
and then we get Kruger cutting him to shreds. like the painted version of himself. It's cut to show it's killing him. Yeah. I kind of felt like, I don't know. Like I said, as I was saying earlier, this just lost me at this point. I found out really, it was a weak death because of the choice that they went with that. So I was a bit, I wasn't kind of buying it at this point. But anyway, so Alice and Yvonne turn up to find that he's been killed. And this is where they then kind of set off to the what is now an abandoned asylum to try and find Amanda's body and release her soul. And in doing so, free her unborn son, Jacob.
And so while Alice is in the dreamscape, we've got
that's right.
We've got Yvonne running around the actual
asylum
place looking for it.
Yes,
which is again I like that it's not just Alice versus Freddy.
Yes.
I like it when there's more kind of people running around. I think it's like an inherently a more interesting kind of climax. It's not just she's gonna say I don't believe in you and turn away. There's a ticking clock where she's just got to hold him off.
Yeah, that's
but
fine.
Also I meant like faint praise. It'd be stronger praise in a better movie.
Yeah, I feel like it was a good idea, but it wasn't executed because it would have been because essentially like she's the bait. She's setting herself up as the bait to distract Freddy from what's going on outside. But I feel like if they need to explore that a little bit more and play with that, and they didn't.
Well,
so.
Yeah, and it also comes into because there shouldn't be a threat of them going to a place while they're awake. But there is like a threat of the dream rules aren't what they were. And also that's incredibly unclear.
Yeah.
And here's the question, because Freddy's using her unborn baby and its perpetual kind of dream state to reach out and kind of cross lines that it what he hasn't been able to do in previous kind of turns. For you, is any of this clear? Is any of this does any of this make any sense? If I could put it on paper, it's okay. There's lots of nuggets of ideas where you're like, that's interesting. But it's vague as hell, and it's
there's no real thread, is there? That's the thing. It's just a mixed match of things that are going on, and
even just having an exposition scene.
Yeah.
Where as dry as you'd have it be. Yes, you're laying the table. Someone's one of the group has figured out what's going on, and they inform the rest of us. We set up what the rules are. We know going into the finale, what our limitations are, what the threat is, what But it's just not. It's just not there.
It's not. Yeah, it's just a big mess. So look, essentially, Alice is leading, and we're in this labyrinth kind of domain.
Yes, it's a real MC Escher staircase kind of thing.
Yes.
Rewatching this, I was like, haven't we done this in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie before? But it's not. I had recently seen Labyrinth, and that's what, which does it so much better.
Oh, it does so much so.
It's so much better.
But we have that whole kind of chase sequence happening. But then Freddy goes back inside Alice, doesn't he, to hide. As she catches up with Jacob.
Yes.
That's where it's revealed that Kruger's been inside her the whole time, inside her body, and that's where Alice has to force him out, like kind of almost push him out, and almost dies in doing so to get him out of herself. And then
it's at that moment that Yvonne finds Amanda.
Yeah.
Just kind of sitting there, and Amanda turns and says, "Thank you," and fades away.
That's it.
Which allows her, which I don't understand because Amanda she's intervened earlier in the movie.
Yes.
Now she's free to fully intervene, maybe.
Yeah.
Because she enters now into the dreamscape, and she's championing. But she wasn't before. It's God. It's all over the place.
It is.
She tells Jacob, you got to help her. Your mum's gonna die without you.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
Jacob turns back and has a Freddy face.
Yes,
saying, stop playing with her. Like, come and teach me what you got.
Yes.
And then vomits out a soul worm.
Yeah.
That goes straight into Freddy, and it bursts out with 3 little tendrils, and on each of each tendril is a face of one of our friends that have died in this movie, including the big bulging cheeked face of
of Greta,
of Greta, which still doesn't look good, even though it's kind of ridiculous. Is they pull Freddy, they pull him all the way back to Amanda.
That's right.
And
she
they pull out. They are like the they pull out of adult Freddy. They pull fetal Freddy out.
That's right.
And Amanda absorbs him back into her womb.
Right. Yes.
Which fair. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And then but then there's like this fight within the church again. The doors kind of close in again, it's like
she's struggling. She's like, because Freddy isn't defeated.
No.
He's defeated, but he's not destroyed.
That's right.
With her kind of like wrestling with him as the doors kind of close and break, close and break, close and break, and then the final one closes and holds.
That's right. Contains him. Yeah.
Contains him, yeah. And then we come out, we time jump. Presumably 8 or 9 months, because the baby Jacob is now born.
And he's now no longer having nightmares.
Yep.
And we have the final scene, which is we have the children, the skipping rope kids again.
Yeah, they're sitting in the park. Yvonne is our friend who has survived this one. As they kind of pull back, and we just see the back of one of the girls skipping, and we know that it's not over. Which like, I don't mind that it ends with not like he's been destroyed, but maybe it's kind of like he's been restrained.
He's been restrained this time. That's right.
Because he's been destroyed in every other movie. Yeah. But he's back, and we know he's back, and you always know he's coming back.
Yeah. That's it.
But that's the dream child.
That's the dream child. That's the end of the dream child.
What a dream.
What a dream. What a weird dream. What were they smoking for that dream? So we kind of conclude on that one. And a couple of things before I kind of ask you a few questions around it. It was directed by Stephen Hopkins. Again, playing around with I guess an inexperienced director at this point. Hadn't really done a lot other than one lick.
One film, yeah.
One film. And the film that he preceded it with was Predator 2. So big changes there. He would also do Blown Away, which was the Jeff Bridges film, I believe. I'm just going to double check. Was it Jeff Bridges and not Jeff Bridges? Oh my God, Tommy Lee Jones. movie. Oh no, and Jeff Bridges. I was right. Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones and Jeff Bridges film. And he would also do The Ghost and the Darkness, which was the line kind of horror pack film with Michael Douglas. He did the Lost in Space movie when that kind of, I'm not talking about the recent TV series that was on there. I'm talking about the late 90s.
Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc starring. And he also did the Life and Death of Peter Sellers with Jeffrey
seriously?
Rush, which is a good movie. I meant, yeah.
That's a very different beast. I didn't realize that one, but yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. He was also, his partner is Rachel Talalay. And we will talk about her in our next podcast discussions on the franchise, because she would also go on to direct the next installment, which is called Freddy's Dead. But and we'll talk about more of some of the other stuff that she did around that. But she's what I will mention is that she was the line producer on Dream Warriors, and she was a producer on Dream Master. So by this point, her partner would come in, and as I said, she comes in to do the sixth one. So she's somebody that is quite immersed in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise films. And as such has a lot to say about it. If you catch any of the Blu-ray kind of extras and stuff, she's one of the main people that they talk with. And she actually, even though it's her husband's film, she did say of this one that it was too physically organic for a film. And I get what she's saying about that, because we are dealing with some subject matters, and there's a lot of like internal kind of female bodily stuff that's going on. So, which you would expect if the lead is somebody who's pregnant. And the stuff that it played when, so it was a bit too kind of, I guess, might have been a bit too visceral for some viewers to kind of take that in a horror environment. And like we were saying earlier, like we're talking about, what's it trying to say about, abortion, or is it pro-abortion or anti-abortion, with, the choices and the parents of Dan wanting to take the baby off her. So it's that kind of, there's a few big questions that are at play that it doesn't, it's a bit too deep for it to get into, as we said. But yeah, so that's kind of the size of it. That's what the film was. That's what it offered up as a new venture for Freddy's domain. So when you finished watching this for the first time, what was your reaction?
Severely underwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, if I thought I was disappointed with the last one, this one kind of put me back in my place. Whereas at least with the last one, the deaths were really great, and all of there was a lot more kind of artisanship in it. It's just weird. And I think the biggest thing that I enjoyed with this, because I enjoy continuity. I like when a sequel kind of has those connections to a previous film and uses it and integrates it and kind of builds upon it. And those elements I did really like. I liked Dan a lot more in it. But again, he's gone very early. And it's just very disappointing.
I have to agree. I mean, I kind of prefaced this anyway at the beginning of the podcast when I was saying I'm not a fan of this one. I definitely feel like of the franchise so far, this to me is the weakest one. We're 5 in, and I feel like this one's the turkey. I just didn't connect with it. It could have been a lot cleverer than it was. It had scope for going somewhere, but
it had potential.
Potential.
Which I always find as a harder fault. It's I'm so much more against a film that had potential squandered it. Then something that's just kind of crap. It's like because I can just feel that there's a better movie there. It's the setup. The setup is interesting.
Yes.
But they don't do anything with it.
No, that's right. For me, and this is because I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan. When I was younger, the highlight for me is that this has got "Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter" in it, which was by Bruce Dickinson, who was one of the prominent singers of the band Iron Maiden. So I kind of dug that part of it, but that doesn't say too much about the film. But yeah, look, it's a weak one, and by this point in the franchise, you were saying underwhelmed, and you would be questioning whether Freddie had any longevity with him by this point, because it does feel like they're kind of exploring as much as they can explore. So, having said that in mind, you kind of said where you were at after watching the film. Your friend watched it with you. What was her thoughts on the franchise by this point here?
Very, very similar. I think we actually, because we didn't do them all in kind of, we did them across maybe three sittings. We did them chronologically across 3 sittings. So we had this one. This one last out of we watched Dream Warriors and then Dream Master and then this one.
Okay.
And it definitely,
you feel like
it's not even
slope, yeah,
absolutely. Because with the last one, there's a lot more to kind of laugh at.
Yes,
there's so much less to laugh at here because it's like there are so many elements of it trying to go for a darker tone. That you just, and you know, it still has some really great lines. You know, you're just a little bit pregnant is like is kind of phenomenal. I really want to. I want to put that up on my wall. I think that's like a kind of I think that's a genius line.
Yeah, that's just
yeah. But you know, being a little bit pregnant doesn't save this movie.
It doesn't, unfortunately. We do. So would you, on that note, recommend it to anyone, or is it pretty much like the same as our last podcast with number 4, where only if really you're following that franchise journey?
I would recommend the other one. I would recommend number 4 over this one.
Sure.
I wouldn't recommend this one. It's just not. There's not much fun to be had.
No. I agree with that. Completely. So I think we're kind of united. I think on our thoughts across the franchise up to this point. Obviously, Freddie does come back with Freddy's Dead, and we will talk about that in an upcoming podcast. But let us know your thoughts out there. Like maybe this one did stick with you. Maybe you are a fan. Let us know if you are, and make some comments across our social media platforms, and let us know. But I think for us, we're going to bow out there on our discussions on A Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Child. Other than, I'm going to throw this little Pennywise work into the note, to the mix. I did mention Pennywise in our last podcast too. But in It Chapter 2, in the climax of that film, they are walking away from the cinema, and the cinema is showing this particular film, Dream Child. As they are walking away, we don't see the film; it's just written up on the lettering outside the actual theatre itself. And I did wonder what that meant about It Chapter 2. Is it insinuating that Pennywise will be reborn some way down the line? I don't know. Thought that was an interesting one, just to throw in the mix. Okay. But on that note, as I said, we are going to bow out of our podcast discussions on The Nightmare on Elm Street, and until we return later in the mix in an upcoming episode. Until then, I'm your lead surgeon and host for this series. My name is Saul Muerte, and I was joined for the discussions by Oscar Jack. Goodbye.
Bon appetit, bitch.
You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Music supplied by Peter Nezik. For more discussions or podcasts, head over to surgeonsofhorror.com or head over to our Facebook and Twitter sites for the latest news and updates.